Hello, Freeze.
Hello, big brother. Sorry.
It's
Forgive me, I mean.
It's JJK.
Okay.
Welcome to this interview.
Thank you very much, Biggie. Sorry. HK.
Tell me, what would you have done differently if you weren't an OAP?
I didn't start as an OAP. I initially started as a musician, a rapper. I just felt I was one of those kids that had some bars, and I'll spit bars till my mom would throw something at me. Then I went to Romania in 1996, and I have a cousin called Gina. She was having a 30-minute teen program on the radio. And I followed her once, and I was like, Gina, I can do this. And when I came back to Nigeria, I auditioned for and got a job at BCOS in Ibadan, and that's how the broadcaster started. But if I'm not a broadcaster, there are a few things I wouldn't mind doing. I wouldn't mind being a pilot. I wouldn't mind, of course, I think that's a little late now because I'm a preacher now, so I'm doing kingdom work.
Before we get to the kingdom work part, tell me, why the name Daddy Freeze?
Biggie, sorry, HK, you see, it's I go a long way with that name. MC Roy in BCOS gave me Dr. Freeze. We're looking for nicknames, and I just couldn't find any nicknames. I said, you know what, I'll give you Dr. Freeze. So the doctor just wasn't going. Then it became DJ Freeze. Then eventually I came to Cool FM, and everybody was on their first name basis. And the DJ Freeze just didn't go, so I dropped the DJ Freeze and I took Freeze. And later on, I used to play some silly game on the radio and ask people, who's your daddy? And Dotun, I don't know how Dotun joined from the Who's Your Daddy. He mated it with Freeze, and he started calling me Daddy Freeze. So that's how it was birthed.
Interesting. You've had a very colorful career, checkered career, I must say, and sometimes it's been very interesting, other times it's been very, very controversial. There is a particular one that sticks out to me, and I would like to know about it. Your infamous feud with Basketmouth.
I think it was my fault. I got too emotional. I was going through a bad state, and it seemed to me that Basketmouth was taking shots at me. Maybe I was paranoid, but I was in a very bad state. So, that adage that goes, any shaking tree is a target. So, it was my fault. But I'm sure one way or the other will eventually resolve everything.
Interesting. You have been described by Frank Edo as a broadcaster cut from a different fabric. Have you heard that before?
From Frank, yes.
Yes. What's your take? What does that mean to you?
I've always known I was different. The kind of things I do, not many people can do. Not that I'm bragging, but everybody has their speciality. And my specialty seems to be a bit unique, a bit weird, a bit twisted, and totally different from what you'd have a normal broadcaster be. Cut from a different cloth entirely. I don't share the same belief systems with a lot of people. And also, I'm very, very outspoken, very vocal, very opinionated. As a broadcaster, you're not allowed to have an opinion. That's the first rule I broke. You're not allowed to have an opinion. You're just supposed to be a puppet. And I'm like, you know what? When the robots come, we can hire them to do the radio work. But as long as you want to hire me, I'll give you my opinion, whether you like it or not.
Okay, so about Freeze the Preacher.
Yeah.
Free the sheeple movement. Before we get to the marriage part, I mean, these are the two main tenets upon which your opinionism has been been hinged upon in recent
Yes.
times. First, let's take the free the sheeple movement. Now you are a preacher, lots of followers, freeing people, the sheeple. I even heard about the goto recently.
Is that the next level?
I'd like to hear about that.
You see, Biggie, sorry,
It's HK.
HK, I beg your pardon.
Yes.
There was a point in my life where I had an epiphany of sorts. When I realized that, look, everything, the more I studied, the more I prayed, the more I became spiritual, the more I realized that what we were being taught as Christianity was false. It was too hinged on money. It had gone to where the problem started initially. If you remember, Jesus was fighting with the teachers of the religious law, the scribes and the Pharisees. The whole Matthew chapter 23 is dedicated to how hypocritical the Pharisees were. But guess what? By the time Jesus died, was put in the tomb, he resurrected, he ascended into heaven, that same hypocrisy came into the disciples. I think human beings just have a problem with being hypocritical. I remember Paul rebuking Peter in public for being hypocritical. Initially, he was behaving like the Gentiles, and after a while, he stopped eating with the Gentiles because they were uncircumcised. Hypocrisy set in. Then, if you go into the early church, one way or the other, money came in. You could buy your sins, for instance. You could pay and have your sins forgiven. It was called the indulgence, in the old Catholic Church. And the Protestant Church complained about that and broke out of the Catholic Church. I'm just trying to do a quick summary of what happened over many years in history. Now, the Protestant Church broke out of the Catholic Church because of that hypocrisy. Why would you tell someone you can pay and go and sin? It doesn't make any sense. Now, after a while, Charles Fox Parham in 1900, along with another gentleman called William Seymour, were the two figures that started the Pentecostal movement. One of the things they complained about was the hierarchy of the Methodist Church, because Charles Fox Parham broke out of the Methodist Church. He was never ordained as a preacher. He just started a movement, and his sole motive was to seek the fruit of the Holy Spirit. Speaking in tongues, prophecy, healing, prayer. That was all. He never collected offering. He never collected tithe. His school, the Bethel Bible School, was free, no tuition. And before you know it, 118 years later, we're back at where the Pharisees were. Christianity broke out of Judaism. Christianity was what led to the Catholic Church. The Protestant Church broke out of the Catholic Church. The Pentecostal Church broke out of and we have gone back to where we originally broke out of. And for the same reason, we broke out of Judaism. Hypocrisy and money. I've realized that you can't worship God with your money. Nigeria, about a week ago, overtook India. You could check it out, worldpoverty.io. We now have more people living in extreme poverty. 82.8 million people in Nigeria, according to World Poverty, the World Poverty Clock, are living in extreme poverty. India has 82.1 million. India is rising away from poverty, and we're going deeper into poverty. Yet one bald-headed chairman that screeches like a fowl said that God gave him anointing to preach wealth or to create wealth. How? It doesn't add up. We have 23,000 registered churches in Nigeria. One of those 23,000 has 34,000 branches. One out of the 24,000. Now, there's still 23,999 You took out one. That one has 34,000 branches. So it's like the only thing we do in Nigeria is church. It doesn't show. We don't love one another. Now the worst part is the hypocrisy. A pastor will tell you that you are cursed if you don't obey Malachi 3:8-10. Malachi 3:8-10 is an old...
Yes, which is the part I'm very interested in.
Yes.
That's the tithing.
The tithing.
Yes.
Now, Malachi 3:8-10 is an old covenant law. For the Jews, it's not for Christians. Galatians 5:4 says if you want to obey the old law, you have to obey the whole law. Let me explain how hard the law is. If you are caught gathering sticks on the Sabbath day, you must be stoned to death. A woman who's not a virgin in her father's house, that she's not yet married, she's in her father's house and she's lost her virginity, must be stoned to death in front of her father's house. It's there in the book of Deuteronomy.
Yes, it is.
Stubborn children should be stoned to death. Leviticus 19:27, you're not allowed to trim your beard or cut the hair on the side of your head. In Afghanistan, under the Taliban regime, they have the beard patrol. It's biblical. It's against the law of Moses to cut your beard. Now, all the Jews are clean shaven. Oyedepo clean shaven. Adeboye clean shaven. The other one in Abuja clean shaven. You are not keeping the entire law of Moses. And then you want us to keep Malachi 3:8-10. It doesn't make any sense. Galatians 3:10 says you are under a curse if you do not keep the whole law and you're trying to find righteousness by the law. So if you go to the book of Hebrews chapter 7 verse 18, we're under a new covenant. And under that covenant, there's no tithing. Jesus never collected tithe. The disciples never collected tithe. The first churches they set up never collected tithe or first fruit. So if you're paying tithe or first fruit, you're doing it according to the law. And the curse of Galatians chapter 3 verse 10 is upon you because you're not doing the rest of the law.
The rest of the law. Okay, interesting. Quite a lot has been said. Much more to say. I mean, everyone puts, for the past how many months now, it's been brewing and it's been raining. Controversies, some agree, some disagree.
Oh,
and,
yes, I'm sure.
It's yes, for and against. I'd like to talk about marriage. It's another thing you've come to be controversial for. Some have misunderstood you. Some definitely understood you. Talk to me about your first marriage. Your view of marriage in general, and then dovetail into your first marriage.
Marriage is a beautiful thing. It's just that we have a problem. We base marriage on the wrong precepts. Instead of basing marriage on love, on partnership, on friendship, we base it on societal demands, which is wrong. If you are at a certain age and you're not married, there's something wrong with you. You know, that's how we were raised. I remember when the gentleman you spoke of earlier on, Frank Edoho, first announced his separation by Twitter. I couldn't talk to Frank for like 2 weeks. I was like, oh my God, how can Frank be in a divorce? What kind of rubbish is this? This is so bad. But guess what? It's hypocritical. I know a woman who has 2 boyfriends in her marriage, but hello, she's married. She's got 2 boyfriends in her marriage, in her husband's house, but she's married. And I heard her pass judgment on a single lady. I said, look at her, should she not be in her husband's house? I looked at her, I said, you that you're in your husband's house, should you be keeping boyfriends? But you know, it's the hypocrisy of marriage. And I must say, the marriage we inherited from the Bible was inherited from a time when Ephesians chapter 6 verse 5 reigned. Ephesians chapter 6 verse 5 reads, slaves, obey your earthly masters as you'd obey Christ. The Bible was written, whether we like it or not, during a time of slavery. Jesus fed the 5,000, the women were not counted. Women were not counted. Today, women are counted. They didn't have a voice. Women were not allowed, even according to the New Testament, to preach to men in church. But today, women preach. So I believe that freedom should also be extended to their choice right from when they're young. I can choose not to be married. I can choose to end my marriage because I'm unhappy. So many people have gone to the grave, have developed cancer and all sorts of negative ailments because they're in the wrong place, and there's no account for that. If you're in a relationship with a woman and you beat her, they see the scars. She goes and says, he's beating me. But what about the emotional torture? How can you be in a relationship and the man sleeps with you once a year and the pastor will tell you to go and pray about what? Half the time when you're done praying with it, the pastor helps you out, he services you. I have stories, I can publish all of them in that. So the hypocrisy of marriage. I'm very big against hypocrisy. The hypocrisy of, look at that young man the other day that was insulting me about marriage. Then a few days later, side chicks started springing out of the woodwork. I don't know if I'm making sense to you. In his own mind now, he's justified, he's married. And people were insulting me, you that you're married, at least he's married, in his marriage, he has side chick. What about you? Do you understand the hypocrisy? So, my take on marriage is if you're unhappy, if you're being beaten, if you're being cheated upon, if you're unhappy, leave. It's not by force. Don't be a prisoner and don't hold somebody else a prisoner.
Okay, so in reference to your first marriage,
Yeah.
at what point did you decide that, okay, I've had it up to this point? I mean, this is a point where I can go no further with this marriage. What exactly happened then?
Marriage was doomed from the start. We were not friends, we were not partners, we were wary of each other. You know, like Taste Bud's phone, I can ask her, give me your phone. My fingerprint opens it, her fingerprint opens my phone. I don't see why I need to hide. But, you know, in that other marriage, we're all hiding. We're all like, okay, watching each other. You know, it was just wrong.
You know, hold the thought for a bit. You know, I have to say this. It's a strange thing because not everyone knows this, but I like to say it. I remember when I met my wife and I was going for marriage courses. Remember, each time after the classes, I come to you.
Yeah.
And we discuss. You ask me what, and then I must say that it's a bit. I must say that you are one of the reasons why I've had a very stable marriage, because most of the things you told me, how to be open to my wife, never to password my phone, that if I'm open and honest to my wife, I will never have a problem. And it's been 8 years after I uphold those principles or your counsel, and it's working perfectly. I don't know if it's the function of the people involved, but this is, would you say that, I mean, someone listening to this, will they think it's the classic case of the carpenters to have the worst furniture in their house, or or would they say the tailors wear rags? I don't know.
I understand exactly what you're saying, and yes, you see, a marriage is bigger than let me open my phone or let me close my phone. A marriage is a bit bigger than that. It's very important,
definitely,
but it's not the only pillar upon which, it's like you can't lean a house on one pillar
at all.
A marriage needs some support. It's one of the things. Openness is one of love, communication, friendship, spending quality time together are some of the pillars upon which you can lean a marriage. And none of that was present in mine. I'm not saying this to put her down. It was like I'm saying this to put us both down. We're not working. It wasn't working. But society kept us together because I'm speaking for myself now. Maybe she wanted to go or she didn't want to go. I can't speak for her. But I was in the marriage because of the society. I don't want to be divorced. Despite the fact that I knew that it wasn't working, when she left, I was broken for about 2 weeks. I was like, oh my God, my life is over. You know, when she left, I used to stay in official quarters. So when she left, it was like a big void. Everybody saw, I'm like, oh, my life is finished. I almost went suicidal. But after the first 2 weeks, I woke up one day and I was like, wow, I like this feeling. I've gotten over the whole shame part. And now I wake up in my room, I can arrange things the way I want them. You know, I felt relief. And I was like, this should have happened a long time ago. I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Yes, and I have you to thank for my very stable marriage, and I'm serious about that. People tell me you have a beautiful marriage. I said I have Freeze to thank for it. It doesn't add up to many of your critics, but
Yes.
I am not in any way,
Openness is very important.
Yeah, you told me about love, you told me about respect, so many things that I have you to thank for that, honestly. Yes, thank you, Daddy Freeze.
You're welcome, Biggie. Sorry, I meant HK.
There you go again. Now, if you have an option to change something about your life generally, what would that be?
My bank account balance, of course. Is that a given? Add a couple of zeros.
It is. It is a given. How many zeros would you like to add?
Well, it depends on my domiciliary account. If I can add 7 zeros, I'd be glad.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
What is your end game in regarding this free the sheeple movement?
My end game is I feel there was a time it was ministered to my spirit that there are a lot of people dying in bad marriages. So I did a video. I came up, I said, anybody that dies in a bad marriage after this video is going to hellfire. Get out of the marriage now. 2 weeks later, a woman killed her husband in a high-profile case in Abuja. We're all aware of that particular case. The woman killed her husband, and she's now in prison. She has a daughter. The woman has a young daughter. So believe it or not now, the young daughter is without her mother and her father. Father is dead, mother's in jail. They should have left when I said so. I feel that it is my duty, since nobody else has assumed that responsibility, to steer Nigeria away from the prosperity doctrine, because the prosperity doctrine is not a prosperity doctrine. In the real sense, it's a poverty doctrine. China got out of poverty without preaching the prosperity doctrine. As far as I'm concerned, China is almost an atheist or a Buddhist nation. Buddhist, and, because churches were banned, you were not allowed to take, right now you're not allowed to take children into a church in China. Look at India. India is a predominantly Hindu nation. They're moving out of poverty. How come we, with all our 34,000, 23,000 churches, we're still getting deeper in poverty? Obviously, the solution to our poverty is not in the church. And it is my duty to wake my brothers up. Hello, guys, you're not going to get any richer by paying tithe. The only person getting richer is your pastor. There's no part for tithe in Christianity. Jesus didn't collect it. So the end game for me is to wake people up. If we all wake up in a state of awakeness, we can build a greater nation.
So the end game is to free the sheeple.
As it is.
Interesting. Okay. I want to talk about this, and I can see the smile on your face already. Does that mean you know where I'm going to? The beautiful woman by your side.
My taste buds.
Benedicta, she tickles, she excites your taste bud, obviously. Yes. So tell me how your paths crossed. I mean, they say when paths cross, lives can change. Obviously, tell me about it.
I'd known her since late 2012, I think. Our business, we meet a lot of people.
Oh yes.
I think it was at House on the Rock. I know it was a church setting. I was doing something for, House on the Rock, that event center. I used to do some stuff for them, then. Okay, to her it's a church, to me it's event center. It was at that House on the Rock event center, they were having some event there, and she came along, and I met her. I didn't really focus on. I can't really remember because our paths crossed as it was a business relationship. I'm a media personality. She had her factory. She was something just came to my mind now. Say she had yogurt and bakery factory in Port Harcourt, and she needed some publicity, and I was like, yeah, no problem. And I remember calling her once or twice and getting pissed off because her ringtone was one Daddy Gio's preaching. It was so annoying. I was like, what kind of ringtone? So I never bothered calling her back until much later. But as we got talking, eventually, it's like I'm talking about like mid 2013. She told me she had filed for a divorce, and I was like, that same Frank Edoho, really? Oh my God, you are a sinner. How can you be divorcing? That same hypocritical. And I almost stopped talking to her. I'm like, why? No, you have to fix your marriage. Marriage must be fixed. Until she told me, which is the reason I don't want to share why she filed, and eventually we'd been friends, and the friendship started growing. I was also in a very bad place in my marriage for the last 10 years. I'd been in a very bad place. We're not friends. We're just fooling ourselves, So when she moved, I was alone. I had the luxury of being alone. This was in June 2014 when my ex left. So I had the luxury of being alone, and she was one of my closest
and then the
friends.
the void needed to be filled.
So the void needed to be filled, and one way or the other, it ended up being filled.
Would you say it crept up on you, or it grew? I mean, love. Both of you. It came in from your blind side.
Yes, it came in from my blind side because I wasn't.
You weren't looking. You weren't thinking that.
It was
purely business and friendship, and
it was
then
purely business,
and then love.
Friendship didn't creep in till much later. But the kind of person I am. I'm a very free person. I can start asking you deep.
The first time you told you wanted to date me, I was like, what? Don't you ever call me again? And I was like,
okay, you hold that thought. You share that with me.
Yeah.
On your social media handle, you've shown tremendous support for her business, and you've enthused upon her person and how wonderful she's been. Tell me, your support for her business, are you pressured to do this, or do you feel any sense of obligation, or are you trying to say something by all those?
When she left Port Harcourt, she came to Lagos, and we didn't know what she was going to do. Now, I love to eat. She loves to cook. I like to show my watches. She can design rice and beans for you to look like a work of art. So I was like, it's very nice for my watch to go with it. I didn't have money anymore to buy watches. So the old watches, I needed to recycle the pictures. So I was like, wow, okay, I can show the same watch, but with a different meal, and it'll look like a different picture. All right, so that's how the idea was born. And her Instagram followership started creaming. I opened the Instagram account for her. I told her you'd just be taking pictures of your food, be putting it there. She luckily for me, she caught the bug. She caught the Instagram bug. So she was like, she now wanted to, she saw that, look, okay, there's a demand for this food. How do we announce? I'm like, you know what? Let's wait. When you have 50 pictures out there. No, when you have 100 pictures out there, we can now say, all right, this is what you're doing. So we can, because people want to see what you can do. By the time we got to 50, one day I put a plate of Indomie, specially cooked by her with all the mede, and boom, Don Jazzy sent in a request that he wanted. So,
Oh, wow.
I'm telling you, even though our target was let's get to 100, by the time we got to 50, someone as big as Don Jazzy was interested, and he ordered Indomie. I know.
Yeah, he ordered a lot of.
You know, Baba just say, I want Indomie, and sent 100K or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, so
Anything you think I would like that's in your page.
Wow.
you know, so
And I still haven't ordered anything else. So that was how it
that was how
Yeah,
it's
that was
picked.
how
That's
it
where it
started.
started from.
fantastic. You know,
I
great
owe
things-
Jazzy that.
Yeah. Great things start from very, very unpredictable beginnings.
Yes.
It's interesting. Now, speaking about social media, you said she caught the bug and everything, and I'm sure she and everyone saw what happened recently, sometime last month. She was on Linda's television,
Yeah.
and then where she spoke about her previous marriage. And
Yeah.
now my question is, did you discuss this? Did she discuss this interview with you prior to going to?
You know, because all these things are before a high court.
Yeah,
We've been restrained. She's been restrained.
Okay.
You know, so she cannot comment on a matter in front of a high court.
So I know. Can we contempt of court?
Yes, so she doesn't. So she doesn't.
You
ever
know,
be-
not she. You know.
Me too. Since the matter is in front of a court, I also respect. I have a firm belief in the power and the ability of our judiciary, and I do believe that we will get justice, or she will get justice, because it has nothing to do with me.
And okay. So, what would you say about the people who opposed this Free the Sheeple movement? What's your opinion about them? Do you think they are still lost souls, and how do you intend to further reach them?
We've been a bit harsh. We're toning down the campaign a little now because we've started teaching the love doctrine. But the message has to be gotten to everyone. You are not serving God with your money. God doesn't need your money. Do you understand?
Yeah.
He doesn't need your money. As a matter of fact, you are a country in poverty. You don't have money. The Bible in the book of Deuteronomy 14 from 22 down to 20 says, when you have a good harvest, your salary is not a good harvest. Unless you increase salary from 30,000 to 800,000. If you are earning the same salary, you're not having a good harvest. The Bible says when you have a good harvest and you want to give tithe to the Lord, do you understand? So how can you, there's a front desk lady that works in our establishment who I was having a conversation with the other day, and she told me she pays her tithe. And I'm like, how much is your salary? She said 30K. Out of 30K, you are paying 3K. Does it make sense to you? You know, so we need to get people, wake them up. Like, look, stop trying to worship God. Stop trying to bribe God. God is not a policeman at a what do they call it? Checkpoint. That you have to roll some money inside your hand and say, I'm about to hold this one. Happy weekend. That's not God. God is not a bartender. He doesn't need a tip.
And still on Free the Sheeple, what's your wife take on it? Is she in support, or is she opposed to it?
You see, since I'm the one speaking, I might just speak on her behalf. She stopped paying tithe long before I stopped paying tithe.
So she has been freed.
She's been freed longer than I have. It's just that there are some other aspects of free the sheeple. Like there are some people who just believe in their pastors, but she's not one of them, luckily. Now, apparently, she used to do a lot of charity. Go to the hospitals to pay bills, go to the motherless babies' home, go to the flood-prone areas, and then her business kept growing. Then it got to a point the business grew too big. She didn't have time to do the charity again. So she said, instead of me doing this charity, let me give the money to the church. From there, the business started going down. This here, she will tell you her testimony by herself. So when it was further revelation to me that if you want to serve God with your money, serve humanity.
That brings us to the next questions, because we are aware that you engage in a lot of charitable endeavors, you know, and the media doesn't report this. You don't blow your trumpet, but I would like to go there.
When I first realized that Nigeria was going to, when the World Poverty Clock reported that we're rising in poverty, Our escape rate was 12.2. We're escaping at -6. I was like, we are in trouble. So what I did was I gathered some of my disciples and followers and people who believe in our doctrine, which is the free doctrine. And I said, look, we need to do something. We need to help people get out of poverty. They're not going to get out of poverty by themselves. And the church, I'm sorry to say, has failed. Because it doesn't make any sense. A pastor built a school out of tithe payers' money, out of offering money. And the people who are giving this offering cannot attend those schools. Now, Jesus said, all the commandments in the Old Testament are summed up into love your neighbor as yourself. How can a pastor who cannot allow members of his own church attend a school they built with their own funds, how can that pastor tell you he loves his neighbor as himself? And what annoys me is a pastor who is disobeying Jesus is now telling you to go and obey Malachi. So obviously I knew there was confusion. One pastor came out and said there is a curse if you don't pay tithe. Another one came and said there is no curse but you must still pay it. Then another one came and said you will die. I just knew that these people did not know what they were doing. So I knew that we had to take the matters into our own hands. I started the TAP challenge. The TAP challenge was tithe against poverty. Take a tithe of your income and use it to remove one person from poverty. Big shout out to Jude Okoye, that's Peter and Paul's elder brother. He came out and paid the hospital bill for a woman who had triplets but couldn't afford the hospital bill. He paid for her drugs. He just sorted her out. And that was what I wanted. I wanted everybody, big and small, to try and remove one person from poverty. If we all did that, we will not overtake India. But unfortunately, people would rather pay their tithe to pastors. We created the country that created the most poor people on earth, according to worldpoverty.io, also created the richest pastors on earth. Ironically, out of the top 5 richest pastors on earth, 3 are Nigerians. If it makes sense to you, it doesn't make sense to me.
So you would say that it is safe to say that the TAP challenge has enjoyed support? I mean, the response has been impressive.
The response has been impressive. Went to a secondary school the other day and paid for. If you see these wonderful children, well-spoken, but you see their uniforms, neat but torn. You understand? Neat, but they've outgrown the uniforms. These guys are doing well, but their parents are minimum wage earners. NECO form is more expensive than minimum wage. So are your parents going to work for 2 months to buy you a form? Probably not. So you're going to finish school and drop out and be a waste. So we bought 20 NECO forms. Big shout out to Kemi Adetiba, Dr. DB from Dubai, Olajumoke. A lot of people came in and contributed. We also are making school uniforms available to those children. And a lot more people are contributing just to make this happen.
That is very heartwarming, Freeze.
Also, she has an initiative where she cooks and feeds poor people. She cooks Taste Buds meals, puts them in Taste Buds packs, and we drive around looking for beggars and destitutes and hungry people. And she does that once a month, even though I know she's been busy now, but we tagged it once a month.
Tell us about your passion for luxury items, especially your watches, that watches over the foods served by.
Unfortunately, I don't like football. I don't like what my mates like. I like watches. I've always loved watches, and I can save up for a year to buy a watch. That's me. You know, when I'm on the internet, I'm reading about a watch or about a car. Those are the things that give me passion about aviation. You know, so I don't know why I should beat myself over the bush, because what I like is more expensive than what somebody else likes. Sometimes I can't afford them and I daydream or I trade. Sometimes the watches rise in value. Sometimes we're lucky. There's some watches that you could buy and they'll double in value. There's one, especially if you shop in the area of Vacheron, Constantin, or Richard Mille. There's one Richard Mille watch that came out. It's the new Richard Mille RM1103.
How much is that?
It came out at about $130,000. But guess what? They're so rare that they're being retailed now for about $180,000. I wish I had money and I bought that watch. So if you bought the watch a year ago when it came out, you'll be making some $50,000.
It's good business.
And you sell like this because they're limited in number.
So how many watches do you have? High-end, expensive watches. I mean, you have. How many Rolexes? Let's start with.
Right now, I don't have as many as I would have loved to have.
Well, how many do you have?
You know, they're not. We are doing charity work now. So
how many do you have?
One or two.
Really? Do you have Piaget?
Pia.
Hublot?
Well, Hublot is also a favorite of mine.
Tag Heuers and the likes.
Tag Heuer.
What's your favorite?
I like the brand Rolex.
Rolex.
I like Richard Mille and Rolex. If I were to have just two brands, it would be Richard Mille and Rolex.
So apart from watches, what else? I mean, your passion, your hobbies and all. What else do you?
Cars, aviation.
Okay, so what's your favorite car right now?
I'm a Ferrari guy.
Ferrari. Now, to the big and the final one.
Yes.
Would you say, and I need you to think carefully before you answer this,
Yeah.
because you stand quoted in future.
Yeah.
Would you say that you have found love at last?
This is what I'll say.
Action, they say, speaks much louder than words.
So they say.
Okay, so we will not forget this picture.
Don't. No need to forget it. We'll remind
We
you.
will commit it to memory forever.
Amen.
Good luck to you.
Thank you, boss.
Please, I'll ask you this. A lot of people are interested to know. I mean, it's been, some people have been commenting on the social media handle and everything, saying that this relationship has not been formalized, you know, and even though it's been blessed with the fruits of the woman. So what do you have to say about that?
First things first is, like I said earlier on, we're bound by a court process, so we can't really talk. You know, I don't want a bench warrant.
But finally, one last time, your previous marriage produced 2 children.
Yeah.
How would you describe your relationship with your children at the moment?
A bit estranged, you know. I never wanted them to be part of the marriage breakdown. I wasn't married to them, I was married to their mom, you know. But, you know, women have a way of using children to harass men. And unfortunately, I find myself in that situation. I can count the number of times I've seen them since, you know, the divorce. But like I said, it's a matter before a competent court, and I believe the competent court would give us good judgment. So it's only a matter of time.
A matter of time, and I have to call time on your segment of the interview. Thank you very much, Freeze.
You're most welcome.
Hello, Benedicta.
Hello, Biggie. Sorry. AGK.
Freeze infected you, obviously.
Yes.
That's fine. You're the CEO, MD of Tastebud NG.
NG.
I'm a fan of your culinary skills are commendable. But tell me about this business. How long have you been in the food business?
I've been in the food business for a while now. I would say since the year 2005, 2004, 2005.
Okay. And how's it going?
It's been a wonderful journey for me because the food industry is very, very dynamic. It's very innovative, and it's something I've always had a passion for. Tastebuds is actually my second food company. So it's something I love to do.
Where is the first? If this is the second.
Yeah, the first is in Port Harcourt,
Okay.
or was
What is it
operational
called?
in Port Harcourt. Dictachi Foods Nigeria Limited.
Is it defunct or is it still in existence?
For now, we stopped production and we
Okay.
stopped catering under the name Dictachi Foods. So it stays what's for now. It is what's NG here in Lagos.
Okay. Your knight in shiny armor is a controversial character. It is safe to describe him that way.
Yes.
But do people's negativity towards him affect you in any way?
No, I would say no, because I know the true freeze, the real freeze, that's the Ifedayo Olarinde. I know the man I'm with, and he's a great guy. He's a great person.
Could you describe him in one word?
One word. He's a very honest man. He is what you see. He's what you see is what you get with freeze. Yes. And that's what I like about him.
And you've been watching him from close quarters. Have you been watching his watches as well? Do you like his
Yes.
watches, expensive watches?
I love watches.
You too love
Yes,
watches.
I love watches.
Do you
I
have a
love good
couple?
watches. Not as much as I would.
Not
want
as much
to.
as him.
Yes, but I do love watches. I appreciate fine timepiece.
Do you support the sheeple movement?
Yes, I do.
Is that why you're with him?
110%.
Is that why you're with him? Has it helped your relationship that you've been able to key or tap into this?
Yes, I would say it has really helped our relationship, and our relationship has also helped the movement, because I will tell you, it hasn't been an easy journey for him. So sometimes when he's down and he feels this job or this thing I'm doing is way too heavy, I'm always there to tell him, look, you have to do this. Someone has to do this. The message has to be sent out there. So.
He has described you as a very industrious woman, and everyone who follows you online have seen you. You have a great sense of industry and enterprise. Do you ever get to rest at all?
Yes, I do get to rest with his help, because if it wasn't for him, or if it's not for him, I would say sometimes I just go on working and I don't know when to actually stop. But luckily for me, I have him, so he knows when to draw the line and tell me, look, you just have to rest. It's been wonderful.
Now, from business to something, a lot of people would describe as a very touchy subject to you, and which is your previous marriage, and your perspective has been in that it was abusive, and you were traumatized and all. Have you been healing, and how has Freeze helped you heal from the ordeals and the traumas of your past?
Freeze has been fundamental in my healing, because being with someone you love, and someone that loves you so much like he loves me, it makes me realize that we should have hope in life in general. We should not give up on love when we fail the first time, because there is always a possibility that there's someone out there that is meant for you. There's someone out there that will love you just the way you want to be loved. Because I think the problem we have as individuals is we fail to realize that we all want to be loved in a certain way. Okay, so if you find that person that loves you just the way you want to be loved, you're both going to have a beautiful relationship. So I found that with Freeze, and I'm very happy, and it has really helped me in my healing process.
Have you met Freeze's previous wives and his kids? And if yes, how would you describe your relationship with them?
Unfortunately, I haven't.
Do you look forward to meeting
I
them?
look forward to meeting them. I look forward to meeting them, especially his kids, because they're part of him, and I would really love to meet them, and he knows that.
There was an explosive, what I would describe as an explosive interview on Linda Keji television, and you were at the center of it. And it is alleged that after that interview, your ex-husband handed you a lawsuit bordering on defamation. Is that true or false?
That's totally false. I'm not aware of any such lawsuit. No. None that I know of.
What is the most difficult thing you have to deal with being Daddy Freeze's wife?
I would really have to think about that. Because for me,
It's been a utopia.
it's been
Paradise.
it's been wonderful, you know. I've been happy. Not like we don't have differences every now and then, but it's so insignificant, you know, because we are like best friends. We're best friends. We spend a lot of time together. And it's been a wonderful journey. We're very happy. So.
That sounds like what Moses called promised land. Jesus referred to as
It's been
heaven.
very peaceful, very refreshing. So.
So this is your nirvana.
Yes, this is
Like Buddha said.
Yes.
How would you describe your typical day? I mean, how do you start your day and how does it end?
Yeah,
We know you're busy.
Yeah, wake up in the morning, we say our prayers, you know, and then I go sort the kids out. Then I attend to my clients and supervise the work in my workplace, you know, supervise my chefs, my cooks, and we make sure we deliver all the goods to our clients, and then get supper or dinner ready for Daddy Freeze and wait for him to come home.
And then he comes home, and then I'm sure sometimes he shares the incessant, the unrestrained attacks on him on social media.
On social media, you know, it's
How does it affect you?
It's the order of the day, so I think I'm just used to it.
Oh, could
We
you ever
talk
grow
about
used to
it.
something like that?
Yes, we just talk about it. You see, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, so we just talk about it, not really dwelling on any of the issues. You know, we have our dinner, we watch TV, and sometimes have some glasses of wine, and that's it. It's a day. We call it a day.
right.
That's a wrap for that day.
Tell me, categorically, has Freeze paid your bride price?
It's that's private. I mean, I wouldn't like to talk about that because of the matter before the court. The matter before the court, so we were able to disclose that.
Do you have any regrets?
None at all. I have no regrets. Being with Freeze, none at all.
Have you had any regret as a person ever?
Initially, I used to regret ever being in my first marriage. But then when I met Freeze, I realized that there's a good side to every bad situation, because if I wasn't in a bad place, I would definitely not be with Daddy Freeze today. So there's a good side to it.
What is your advice for people who are experiencing what you experienced in your previous marriage, people who are in abusive marriages at the moment, or relationships in general?
My advice for them will be to get up and leave that marriage, irrespective of what family, friends are telling you or what the society expects of you. Your life is more important, and you need to be happy as an individual. So just get up and file for a divorce. Leave the marriage.
Some will tell you it's not always easy to get up and leave like that. But speaking up is also very vital. You have to
It's
speak
very
up,
important. You have to
get
speak
up,
up.
and
And
finally, Benedicta, I need to ask you this. Would you say that you have found love at last?
yes, I have. I have found love.
Now take your time to think about it, because you stand quoted in the future.
I don't have to think about it. I know
You have found love.
I have found.
So your response is verbal. I thought it was going to be action. Could you back it up with an action?
Yeah.
Go ahead now. Now's the time. Thank you guys for coming.